All right, today we're jumping into a story that's as powerful as it is misunderstood. We're talking about the incredible century-long journey of how the modern nation of Eritrea was literally forged in the fires of conflict, colonialism, and an unbreakable will to exist. So let's start with a question that sounds, well, kind of impossible. Can oppression actually create a nation? It seems like a complete contradiction, right? But as we're about to see, Eritrea's history gives us a really fascinating and pretty complex answer to that. But before we can even get into that, we've got to get one crucial definition straight: the difference between a state and a nation. They might sound the same, but trust me, they're not. And understanding this difference is the key to this entire story. Okay, think of it like this. A state is the hardware. It's the government, the borders on a map, the laws, the police. But a nation, now that's the software. It's that shared feeling of belonging, that collective usness that's built on a common story and experience. This distinction is absolutely essential for what's coming next. So let's wind the clock back to the late 19th century. A foreign power shows up: Italy. Now, this was a time of immense hardship and exploitation for the people there, but it had this completely unexpected nation-defining outcome. The reality of Italian rule was just brutal. It was a systematic project of pure extraction and control. The best lands? Seized. Resources? Plundered. Eritreans were forced into military service to fight and die in Italy's wars. They were treated like second-class citizens in their own home, forced into labor, and faced deep-seated discrimination every single day. Which brings us right back to that paradox. How on earth could this level of suffering, this division, this injustice, possibly lead to a unified country? It just seems impossible. Well, here's the crucial twist. For the very first time, people from 9 different ethnic groups, from the highlands all the way to the coastal plains, were all suffering under the exact same boot: the Italian administration. You see, it didn't really distinguish between them. It oppressed them all equally. And this shared experience, it started to forge a brand new collective identity. A common enemy created a common cause. And this is where you see the incredible irony of colonialism. While the Italians were trying to control and exploit the area, they accidentally laid the groundwork for a future state. They're the ones who drew the borders. They built the roads and railways that connected all these different regions. They set up a single administrative system. They basically built the container, and the shared struggle was filling it up with a national soul. Okay, so after Italy's defeat in World War II, Eritrea came under British administration. And it was right here that this new, fragile national identity would face its first major life-or-death test. Get this, the world powers at the time drew up a plan to literally erase Eritrea from the map. The Bevan's Forza Plan, as it was called, wanted to carve up the territory, give a piece to Sudan, and give the rest to Ethiopia, all based on these old ethnic and religious lines. But then something remarkable happened. Eritreans from all those different groups together said no. They stood as one and declared that their shared experience as Eritreans was now way more important than their old divisions. They were a nation, and they absolutely refused to be broken apart. So, having proven their unity, the next and, frankly, most difficult chapter began. Instead of independence, the United Nations, really driven by Cold War politics, decided to federate Eritrea with Ethiopia, completely against the will of its people. And this set the stage for a final 30-year trial by fire. Wow. I mean, this quote just says it all, doesn't it? Here you have the U.S. Secretary of State, John Foster Dulles, back in 1952, basically admitting that justice was on Eritrea's side. But then he says that the strategic interests of the U.S. and its ally, Ethiopia, were simply more important. It was a cold, geopolitical decision that completely ignored the right to self-determination, and it triggered a devastating war. And that one decision, it lit the fuse on a 30-year armed struggle for liberation. It began just 9 years after that federation was imposed. This grueling, brutal war became the ultimate test, hardening that national identity through just immense sacrifice and a shared, unbreakable resolve, all the way until military victory was finally achieved in 1991. 2 years later, the entire world watched as Eritreans finally got the vote they had been denied for 40 long years. In a UN-monitored referendum, the result was a staggering, near-unanimous vote for independence. It was the final, definitive statement to the world. Eritrea was a nation, and now, at long last, it was a sovereign state. So, after all that, What is the principle that ultimately defines this nation? A nation forged through such a unique and difficult history? Well, it really all comes down to one core idea.
Just think about this for a second. The nation is made up of 9 distinct ethnic groups, and it's almost evenly split between Christianity and Islam. Now, in so many other places around the world, that level of diversity can be a recipe for conflict. But in Eritrea, that shared historical journey created something entirely different.
You see, the key here is the difference between unity and uniformity. Eritrean nationhood was never, ever about forcing everyone to become the same. That's uniformity. Instead, it was all about achieving unity, respecting the distinct cultures, the different languages, the religions, while binding them all together through that common history of struggle and a shared dream of a sovereign future.
And so that leaves us with this final, really powerful question to think about. The story of Eritrea completely challenges how we think about the birth of nations. It forces us to ask, how can the most painful parts of a people's history paradoxically become their greatest and most enduring source of strength?